Why do I always keep doing this? I keep forgetting to add myself to the stream. Craziness. But hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining another episode of Waste Off Wednesday. This is Pryce On Purpose, where we discuss the investments that we make in order to fulfill our purpose. I'm your host, Stacey Pryce. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. I would greatly appreciate it as you come in. Don't forget to click like and click share on this video. It would mean a lot to me, and it also helps me to reach more people, and it also helps more people to learn about themselves and to learn about their purpose, because that's what this is all about. I got a great episode here for you guys today. I'm actually really excited. Last time I had Sean Dustin on of the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast, and today we'll be getting another awesome guest. Her name is Tiffany Mosher. I hope I pronounced her last name right. She is the author of this amazing book. Oh, there she is. I'm going to add you to the stream now, Tiffany. All right.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining. I am well. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here now. Right on time like a dime. Oh my goodness. I was just introducing you in a sense.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was saying that you're this amazing author for this book. I'm about like a little less than halfway through.
Okay.
So we'll get into, I was just like, what? Like, I cried, I laughed. Well written. Like,
thank you.
Extremely well written.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. But yeah, I mean, since you're here, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Tiffany Mosher. I'm the author of Beauty Beyond the Threshold, which is a memoir about how I was able to work through my depression and anxiety and overcome that through pushing myself out of my comfort zone and traveling to volunteer internationally. And that was a beautiful ride to be on. The journey was incredible. And in the book, I talk about my struggles with depression and anxiety, but also the beautiful transformation that happens when I overcome these things and work through these things through giving back to others. Aside from that, I am a single mom of 3 amazing kids, ages 18, 15, and 11. And I work as a contractor at a shipyard here local in Norfolk. So I've got a lot going on. A lot going on.
3 kids?
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm like sweating so much. It's hot. So where are you now?
Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Okay, so you're still in Virginia. Okay. Wow. I have a lot to catch up on.
I know throughout the book, I move around a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate it though, because you know what, the way your story started out, I'm like, you know, of course, I like the way it's written because you take us through a journey, and it helps me to like exhibit or to feel that empathy and compassion in your story. And I didn't even know May was Mental Health Awareness Month. Had no idea. But
it is, yes.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, this is awesome. Perfect timing. But go ahead and just let us know, I guess, why you wrote this book.
So I had struggled with depression and anxiety for many years. I really, aside from the fear of abandonment that I had, I definitely lacked a sense of purpose within myself. I loved being a mom, don't get me wrong, but I needed to find something that was for me, something unique for me. And I just didn't know how to go about doing that. For me, it was the struggle of trying to figure out how my mind was working. So I was in this comfort zone bubble of fear, paranoia, anxiety, worry, always constantly searching for the worst. And then I found that I didn't grow when I was stuck in there. And so when I pushed myself out of my comfort zone, started to travel, I noticed that this change was happening, and I would come back and I would tell my friends and family, like, wow, I just went on this volunteer trip. It was great. Here, look at my pictures. And they saw my gradual transformation, and they told me, you need to like write this down. You need to tell people. You need to get this out. And I was like, no, I can't do that. I'm not a writer. That's too scary. And so I had to do one big final leap out of my comfort zone, put pen to paper, and I decided to start writing the story for the purpose of, if I can help encourage and inspire one other person just to hang on, have hope, and that there's a way out of this dangerous cycle of bad thoughts, then all of the hard work will have been worth it. So that's why I decided to share my story.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad and grateful that you did, because there's many points in your story where it could have been your last breath, like literally, in several moments. And that's why I really encourage people to read this book, because it's a journey of, I don't know if the word that I want to use is like redemption, you know what I mean? Because you start to learn more about yourself in these moments that some people don't come out of that. You know what I mean? So I'm grateful that you are here to tell us this story. What are you working on? Like, how do you feel now that you have this like first book out? Like, you did this. Like, what is your reflection of self in this moment?
I some days still can't believe it. And some days I'm just like, is this real? Is this happening? Even, getting to be on a podcast with you, it's like, this is all happening. This is crazy, but it's in a good way.
Right.
I was very nervous to put my whole life out there like this. It was very humbling. It was to be vulnerable. A lot of the things I talk about in the book, as far as my depression and anxiety, were things that I didn't tell even my parents or my close relatives. It was something I kept very, very quiet and to myself, because I felt that I was alone and that there was no one who could possibly understand what I was going through. Of course, I know now that's so far from the case. Right. And hearing the perception of people when they read my book and they reach out to me through either email or through instant message from Instagram or Facebook, and they say to me, wow, like you put into words what I can't, or I'm going to give your book to my spouse or to my parents because maybe they'll finally understand what I'm feeling. That's what makes it all worth it. That's what makes it feel like I did the right thing. And that's what keeps me going to try to get this book in the hands of as many people as I possibly can. And it's tough. It's not easy to do, but just, the more people I can reach, the better.
Absolutely. Like I still can't like believe it. Like, I guess, like, I believe it. Obviously it's your story, but it's just like, because, I guess we don't hear enough of this, you know what I mean? Especially with like regular media and stuff like that, we hear about all that other stuff, but I think it's people like you that we need in society to tell these stories, because just like you said, like, we have to be aware that we're not the only ones going through it. Like, even for me, I suffer from social anxiety, but the only way that I was able to like transition out of that identification, it was doing this, you know what I mean? Meeting people, just challenging myself, like, go talk to somebody that you don't know anything about, you know what I mean? So I'm kind of curious about when you did get help for your anxiety and depression, because I went through that chapter, but I don't think I knew you recognized that there were other people going through this, but were there any stories of other people that were there with you that kind of like hit you and helped you feel okay, so to speak?
Yeah, you're referring to when I was in the hospital?
Yes.
Being there, this is the thing about Hollywood and TV. They make the psych ward, or a very scary place.
Right.
And going there, I knew I was where I needed to go to seek help because I had attempted suicide. But I was scared because I was thinking it's going to be what I see in the movies, and this is going to
Right.
be the horrible, scary place, but I don't know what else to do. I need to go. And
Right.
that's so far from the case.
Right.
There were people that were just like me. Other people who had attempted suicide,
Mhm.
overdoses, things like that. And a lot of it was just due to feeling like I just have nothing else to live for. I don't have a sense of purpose. I don't know what I'm meant to do with my life. A lot of questioning. And I was like, wow, I'm questioning the same things. So we're all kind of the same. And some stories I heard, some people had been, sleeping on the streets, and I had always had a roof over my head. So I learned a lot about perspective of the things I took for granted. When I was in there, I found that my struggles weren't as big as I thought,
Mm.
and that led me to some better understanding of, being appreciative of the things that I have, and that I do have a life worth living, and I want to go home. I want to be a mom. I want to do these things. I want a second chance.
Right.
And having those conversations with those individuals there it was not a scary place at all. It was, I was scared because I was just thrown out of my element, and I'm being
Right.
watched 24/7, because I'm on a suicide risk, and your rights are completely stripped from you. It's a very humbling experience, but I learned so much about myself in the process, and I'm glad that I took that step to go.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you were able to have that experience because it helped you.
Absolutely.
Tell us that part. So I want it said us, like there's other people here. Sometimes I'm like, what? Okay. There are other people here, but on the screen. All right. So tell me about, because I want the listeners to hear the story about when you were in the psych ward and the book that you found. Tell me about that moment.
Yeah, so there's not a lot to do. And it's like, we're very confined. We can only go in certain areas of the place. You have eyes on you at all times. There's not a lot to do.
Mhm.
There's a bookcase though that's just sitting there, and it's got all these approved books because certain topics can trigger certain emotions and things like that. So it's like, a lot of when I would scan the bookcase all the times before, I didn't really find anything that spoke out to me. But one day I just happened to look at it because I had nothing else to do, and I just sat and looked, and there was one that was just sticking out a little bit further cockeyed than the others, and it caught my eye, and I was like, I don't notice that one before. Let me see what it is. And when I picked it up, it was about abandonment and the journey, and I was like, huh, interesting. I'm in here for a fear of abandonment. Let me just pick this book up and see what this is about. And when I sat down and I opened the page, and I just, opened it just to flip through what it would be about, because I'm not into kind of self-helpy type books. I know they're wonderful, they're great. It's hard for me to read them. I'd rather read a memoir and feel the emotions.
Yes.
Just have someone tell me what the steps I have to do.
Right.
And, the first words my eyes laid on said, a little girl grieving the death of her mother. And the words were in a list. And I was like, oh my gosh, a little girl. I have a daughter, and I am in here because I tried to commit suicide. And I looked up at the top of the list, and it said, what is abandonment? And that is the moment that I learned that if this fear of abandonment that I had been struggling with for so long, this fear that led me just down this downward spiral of negative thoughts, of anxiety, of constantly focusing on the negative and preparing for the worst to happen. I had to have control of everything because I wasn't going to let anything rip the rug out from underneath me again. It was just a horrible mindset. But if I had been successful in my suicide attempt, I would have passed that fear of abandonment onto my children. And when I was in that moment, I never thought of that when I was when I was in that moment of that very, very dark place, I never thought how it was going to affect anyone else but myself. I was just focusing on myself, thinking that no one was going to care. And when I saw it from that outside perspective, I was like, I would never want to wish this pain that I've been feeling on my worst enemy, let alone my children. And that's when I knew I had to snap out of it and find a reason to live and find my purpose again.
Absolutely. Wow. I you know that I remember reading that part in the book, and it's just like how certain things like just happen. Like it's like what is the timing? Like were you think like I imagine that you would think like, what was the timing that this book would be here? Like what if it wasn't? Like when or if would you have had that self-realization to think in a sense like outside of you? You know what I mean? That's what I was like, what?
I am a firm believer in like signs and things that are presented to you when you least expect it. I also learned from that experience to always keep my eyes open and be aware of my surroundings, because little things will pop out at you and make you think, you know, except, you know, when I could have been so closed-minded and just been like, bookshelf, whatever. But I think having that open mind and seeing it and exploring what I felt like I was drawn to it. I needed to see it. And so that's taught me to be more intuitive to more signs. And I've gotten those, and it's really, really cool. And that's also what led me to go volunteer in Puerto Rico. So, you know, just having this weird sign, which was a large tree branch that had fallen across a path. That's all it was for me to think, you know, that's the beauty of having that open mind and seeing the things that are presented to you, because they're there for a reason.
Absolutely. You know, I feel like, you know, even when I have anxiety attacks or so, it's like this fictitious world where you're just doomed. Like everything you think about, it's like, maybe this could, no, it can't. Like, it's always this, like, for me, it would be like this voice that's saying no, but deep inside there's a yes, but it like sometimes you need like a trigger to activate that. You know what I mean? And you know, in your story when you discuss like going to Puerto Rico, like that's just so like I found that moment really, really interesting, because for some reason that trip like triggered you to say like this is gonna help me. Like, do you remember that feeling? Like, is that fresh for you? Like that feeling?
Yes, you know, and it's fresh because as an introvert, it was a very scary, very, very scary concept for me. Prior to going to Puerto Rico, you know, in the book, I talk about this little small step out of my comfort zone as far as learning how to play the guitar and singing in front of my teacher. Now, for me, that was a very scary thing to do, because out, you know, in the music center, there's people and the door's this thin, so they're going to hear me sing. That's just no way can I do this, but I did it, and I noticed that something good came out of it. So there was that little boost that stepping out of your comfort zone is okay, but I'm still scared to do it at this point when I was getting ready to go to Puerto Rico. And when, you know, Puerto Rico has a very strong place in my heart. I have family that live on the island. And when the hurricane hit, I wanted to help. I donated financially, but it wasn't anything that I could do really more than that, because I didn't feel I could. But when I saw the tree branch fall across, I was like, aha, maybe I need to go volunteer. It was just this weird epiphany. I don't even know where it came from, because I was like, I can't do that. I can't volunteer. What am I doing? What am I thinking? But as I'm Googling and as I'm trying to, you know, find out if there are volunteer opportunities, I'm talking myself out of it, I find, because I'm just too nervous to do it. Like, what am I don't even know how to use a power drill. Why am I thinking going to do concrete roof repair? This is so beyond you, Tiffany. What are you doing? And when I got approved to go, I knew I had to buy a plane ticket within a very short period of time that was non-refundable. Because I know my way of thinking. I will talk myself out of it because I'm going to be too scared. And so but there was something in me that said, this is such a huge, giant leap out of your comfort zone. Not only are you an introvert and you've never traveled by yourself, but you're going to go take on construction work. This is so big, but I just felt deep down that there was something that can come out of it. I had faith in that unknown, and it turned out to be a beautiful thing. That's why I named the book Beauty Beyond the Threshold, because there's good and beauty beyond that comfort zone threshold. You just have to have faith and hope that it's going to turn out well. And I did. And that was when I got the whole, I know what I want to be when I grow up moment. Even though I'm almost 30. It took that long, but you know what? It was like that aha moment, and it just started the transformation.
Yeah, you know what? That's a profound moment right there, because I think there's this idea, because I felt it years ago. Like, what am I? 36. I'm 36 now. I had to double check. But there's this idea that you go through this cycle, and your cycle's supposed to look like everybody else's. You go to school, somewhere in high school, or even if you're that lucky one when you're like a baby, you're like, oh, I just want to be an astronaut. And like you just go through that trajectory, and that's where you end up, and then you stay there like for the rest of your entire life. You know what I mean? But some of us, we may try a couple of things and it may or may not stick. And some of us may not even have an idea until like later on in life. There are people in their 50s that'll just have that light bulb go on and be like, oh, you know what, this means this. Like, I want to take action on this. So that's why I want others to know, like, it's possible that you may need time to develop. It's kind of like an orchid. An orchid won't have any flowers on it, and you'll be watering that thing, and then like months down the line, all of a sudden it blooms. Like, you never know.
I think society tells us what the steps are supposed to be. And that's so far from the case, because you can't really, I found for me that it took me pushing myself out of my comfort zone to do things in order to discover who I truly am. I thought I had it figured out, but it wasn't until I did something drastic and a little bit nerve-wracking to discover who I truly am. Something that I wish I had learned about so long ago, because if I would have known that that's what it would have taken for me to start this journey of self-discovery and my recovery from depression and anxiety, I would have done it a long time ago. But it's just, one of those things you just have to kind of learn along the way. And it wasn't anything that was taught to me. I had to come to it to myself. So that's another reason why I wanted to share this story is, for someone who may be struggling, I did counseling, I did medications, and they help to an extent. But in order to discover yourself, you've got to take those leaps of faith on your own. And that was the missing piece that I discovered worked for me.
Yeah, I think I even realized with myself, it's like, a lot of people be like, oh, you'll be great at this. Oh, you're so awesome. Like, why don't you do this? And you might dabble in those things, but it's really about like, there's this feeling, I don't know, I don't think there's a way to describe it. It just feels right, where you're just like, okay, this is my thing, and it can happen at any time. You don't know when. What would you, so say somebody, went through the experience like you did in the hospital and had to take that hiatus or take that health journey. Let's say they're outside of that now. What would you encourage them to do? Say, like, trying new things? Like, what would you say to them?
First, I would say, what is something that scares you? What is something you've always wanted to do, but you've just been too scared to pursue? Like, for example, for me, right now, I have this immense fear of public speaking. So something I've always wanted to be able to do would be to stand on the stage of like a TED Talk and just talk to hundreds of people with millions watching and inspire, and everyone's, wow, Tiffany's this great person. Like, or just something, send a powerful message.
Right.
By me on a stage in front of all these people. Now, that's something I would love to do. Put me in front of 5 people right now. I would shake, laugh, out of feeling uncomfortable and just completely flop at my wording. And so, so the reason why I bring that up is think of something that is something you've always wanted to do, but take baby steps. It doesn't have to be you go from I've always wanted to be a motivational public speaker to going on a stage in front of hundreds of people. Take little steps. So for me, it's doing things like this, like a podcast, knowing I'm talking to you one-on-one, but people are listening, people are watching.
Right.
But I can't see all of them, but I know they can listen. So I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
I've also done some workshops on Zoom, and I got approached to do a webinar for students in India at an international language studies course. And there was like 85 students on this Zoom, all listening to me talk about my writing journey. And the topic of the day was overcoming writer's block, which is something that I experienced. It was comfortable for me to talk about. And I found that I wasn't as scared as I thought it was going to be. And when I finished the Zoom, when I finished the webinars, when I finished the podcast, when I finished interactions with people on Instagram Live or something like that where people were watching, I get more and more comfortable with the concept of public speaking, to the point where, when it's safe to do so, if I get a smaller speaking engagement for a small group, then I can stand up and talk about that. So it's taking baby steps is the most important thing. Don't take a leap too big, because that's going to be, now I know that kind of contradicts what I said, because I took a huge giant leap going from
Puerto Rico,
introvert to traveling to Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
But for me, I felt like I was so desperate for change in my life. That's why I took that risk. But believe me, I was terrified to do it. It was just, if I could go back and do it again, I would maybe take a little solo travel trip by myself somewhere local within driving distance for like 2 days and see how I felt, and, do more local volunteering in my community. But, that would be my advice. Start small and let those little bits of accomplishment build your confidence and your self-esteem, because it will. You're going to feel empowered, motivated to try something new and see how you can progress yourself further.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. I mean, it's so interesting because I'm thinking about confidence and self-esteem, and I'm realizing that, like, there's certain things, like I'm actually trying to post a link to your book simultaneously. Multitasking, oh God. But yeah, like, it's so interesting because now I'm thinking about how self-esteem and confidence, that's something that's built. But the best ways, or the ways that we can build it, is by trying new things, putting ourselves in those uncomfortable moments and coming out of them and like, wow, what I thought in my head is not what's happening here. Like, there's no correlation here. Like, it was an idea. Like, I think that's the beauty of the brain, though, because the brain can come up with all these ideas and everything. That's our imagination. But sometimes it can come up with things that are not so good. And then that, if you believe it and you don't do it anyway, that's what's going to hold you back. You know what I mean?
The fear of rejection is so strong.
Oh my goodness.
It is so strong. And I think when it comes to self-confidence and self-esteem, I think so many people, and myself included, when I was really depressed, I thought it would be like the flip of a switch, that one day I'm going to feel great about myself.
Right.
It's going to happen someday. I don't know what, and we chase that through buying material things, or changing our location, or changing jobs, or drastic life things, or whatever it may be. It's that instant gratification is something that we all want.
Right.
But in building self-confidence and in building your self-esteem, it does take a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of work, but it's so important to stick with it, because once you achieve it, once you get it, and you feel you feel good,
Yes.
and then it's easier to approach difficult situations too. I notice now that, in the book, my first divorce that led me to this horrific fear of abandonment, and I handled
Mm.
it so horribly. My coping skills were terrible. And then, and you haven't gotten to this point yet, but throughout the book, I talk about another impending divorce, and I'm going through these changes. But as my self-confidence and my self-esteem has grown, and I'm transforming and recovering, and beautiful things are happening for me mentally, I'm still faced with tragic life situations. Going through another divorce, my teenage son decides he wants to go live with his dad, and I'm navigating all of these like difficult emotions to hold in my heart, but I'm noticing at the same time I'm handling them a lot better, and my perception about the outcomes is a lot different. And that's the beauty of that. Trying to maintain on a positive focus is so important.
Absolutely. Wow.
You'll get there. You'll see it when you read it.
Yeah, you know what it is? I'm reading and I'm like, I'm telling my girlfriend, I'm like, I need to finish reading this book before we speak. Like, I need to finish it. And I'm like trying to get through it. And I'm like, no. Like, chill out. The book, you're going to read it. You could always have her on again. But it's because I wanted to, you know what? It's the way your story goes, obviously. But the way it's written, it's just like, well, what happens next? You know what I mean? But from my perspective, it's from the beginning of your story and going through that divorce, you know what I mean? And I feel like this version of you that I see today, there were elements of you in that moment. Like, you know, you had a friend to help you through it, but there were pieces that, like, it was the building. It was the part of the building, like the bricks were starting to form, because I don't have children yet, but I can't imagine being in the condition that you were in, and then going through that divorce and having those thoughts, but still, like, the thing is, even though you were still having those thoughts, you still made the moves that you had to make.
It was not easy. It was not easy. I was basically running on an empty tank. For me, anxiety hits people in different ways. So for me personally, when I get very anxious, I can't eat.
Same.
I can't sleep. And I can't focus on anything else but what's causing me the anxiety. I am so envious of the people who can sleep through their anxiety, just go to sleep and sleep for 12 hours, or who can just pour themselves into their work and forget about it. Or, you know, I'm not wired that way. But I have these little humans, this 3-year-old daughter, a 6-month-old son, that need 100% of me, and I can't even take care of myself. And that was just, I was definitely going through the motions without any sort of feeling like I look back and I'm like, you know, in a way, I'm kind of glad my kids were too young to remember, because I feel like I was a zombie. Like, that's the only thing I can attribute it to. I wasn't really full of life at all. I didn't know how else to cope with it. I just did what I had to do, and then would just retreat into my anxiety. It was very tough, very tough.
Yeah. Oh man, you're truly courageous. Like, because there's such strength in being vulnerable and sharing your story. You did mention earlier that your family now knows about what you've been through. So is it that you told them before the book came out, or you're like, hey, wrote a book, you should check it out? And they were just like, what the heck? Why didn't you come to me? Like, what was that experience like?
So they knew my parents knew I went to into the hospital for a suicide attempt. They did not know what led to it, or, you know, the darkness, how dark my thoughts were. They did not see that coming. They didn't know the details of what happened, you know, regarding the attempt, or just whatever my mindset was. I had no idea. And a lot of people didn't know. So when I decided to write the book, I said, well, I have to include these things in the book. I have to make the reader aware of where I was at, so they can see the whole transformation happen. So I basically, before the book was published, I told them, you know, look, you're going to read things that are very uncomfortable.
Mm.
I didn't spell it out. I just let them read it in their own time before it was published. You know, I sent a PDF copy
Mm.
in their own privacy of their own home so they can read and process it. I
Mm.
think that there were moments of shame that they felt that as parents they failed their daughter, which was not
Mm.
the case for me. I had a very wonderful upbringing, and so I had to kind of explain to them that it was not their fault at
Right.
all. Um, another hard part was talking to my kids about it because, my kids
Yes.
were teenagers. They were young. They didn't know when I was gone where I was at or what happened. They just that attributed to my sadness, my depression being just who mom is. And so now that they're older, they've read the book. My two older kids have read it, not my youngest, but
Mm.
they're able to kind of understand. But they're also at an age where they're teenagers, and it's important for them to know mental health, even though it's a tough topic. It's a very real topic. There are teenagers that get depressed and take their own lives, unfortunately, and so it kind of gives them. It gave them the mindset of knowing what to look for in their peers, I think,
Mm. Good.
to what signs to look for. And it opened up some really good conversations for us. And it kind of brought us all closer as a family in a
Good.
way to share these things. But yeah, it was very hard to put it out there for everybody. I wasn't sure though what the world would think about what I went through, or if I would get met with rejection or
Mm.
scrutiny. But thankfully, that hasn't been the case. It's been a lot of thank you for sharing this. This is important to talk about this. I don't feel so alone in this. And that's what's good about it. It's important to talk about these things. For so long, I kept it hidden. And it was a very therapeutic process to get it out and be able to talk about it now without getting too emotional. It's a
Mm.
kind of, I'm proud of who I am today. So I want others to be, to get to that point too, where they can be happy and full of life and energy and confidence in themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's such strength in this moment because I know it will happen. I'm pretty sure it already has, where people are reaching out to you, to express their gratitude and you sharing your story. I'm actually in the process of writing a book myself. So
Okay.
you're actually the second author that I've had on my show. And I remember speaking to someone, her name is Shanti Shix. She actually has done a TED Talk overseas to share her story. You guys should connect.
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Her story is just, it's, I have no words. It's one of those things, but she has written a book as well. Actually, okay, so you're the third author. Now that I think about it, you're the third. But I think everyone I speak with that has written a book says the same thing. Like, you're going to have those moments where you're going to expose certain things about yourself, but for some reason there's like a calling that you need to do it, and the outcome is similar, where it's like, your purpose is to share your story, but to, maybe hope that somebody gets that light bulb to turn on, and just maybe if they were considering ending their lives or doing something drastic that wouldn't help them, just to wait one day.
Yeah,
you know
exactly. And to go in wanting to write this book was, in itself a huge step. And I had never anticipated writing the book. And to go back on what I was talking about earlier about, signs and weird things happening that, you don't quite ignore. So how I got into the process of writing this book was I got this random message on LinkedIn from a Georgetown professor named Eric Custer. And he was like, came across your profile. Have you ever thought about writing a book? Now, this was January of 2020. And I was like, no. No, I'm in the middle of going for my master's. I'm a mom. I'm working full time. I don't, he's like, but if you ever thought about writing a book, what would it be about? And I was like, I guess my life and travel. And, like when I looked at it, I was like, that's not what anybody's going to want to read. Like, I went to volunteer in a couple disaster response projects. Like, who cares about that? Who's going to care about that? Whatever. But then he kind of told me, he's like, look, you have this journey. You went through this whole depression, anxiety, a suicide attempt. You survived, and you've rediscovered yourself through service to other people. That's so unique. Like, I think he's like, have you read any, what kind of books do you like to read? I said, I love to read travel memoirs. They're like my favorite. I love to read about transformation of people in their lives through their eyes. So it's like memoirs about travel are really, really fun because I get to learn about different cultures and experiences and see the world through the eyes of other people. He's like, okay, well, I mean, basically your life is that. Do you not see that? And then I was like, huh.
Yeah.
Something. I was like, he's like, have you ever read anything that's similar to what your story? He's like, I've never came across a book about someone who transformed their lives through volunteering in disaster response internationally. And I was like, come to think of it, neither have I. Oh, you might go to something. And so, long story short, he has this program called the Creators Institute where they help. It's like a hybrid publishing where they help authors self-publish, but through the publisher. It's a really, really cool thing, and it lasted a year. And he said, we're getting started with our new program January 24th. If you want to join us and write this book. And I was like, I'm going to Nepal on January 24th. So I can't, sorry. And he's like, take time to think about it. And when you come back, we'll regroup. And I was like, okay. So I go to Nepal to volunteer in earthquake relief and build schools. And I'm thinking about it. And I was like, you know what? Maybe it is time. I want other people to feel this strength that I've been able to feel. And maybe it's not through traveling to volunteer. I mean, volunteering works wonders for the soul, don't get me wrong. But I think it's the message of just pushing yourself out of your comfort zone in general. That's the main point. And that's something that I wish I had learned so long ago. And so when I got back from Nepal, I was like, I guess I'll write. And I almost quit 3 times. It's a hard process writing a book. It's not easy. That self-doubt is so strong. And I felt, I don't know, I'm a very matter of fact, like research writer, because I was going for my master's. Everything was very literal. So my first draft of my book was absolute crap because it was just, I went here and I did this. It was fun. It was just very like boring. And my editor, luckily, he helped, my developmental editor. He helped drag the emotions and show me what it was like. And that inner creative writer that I didn't know existed came out. And it was a beautiful, beautiful process. And so you'll see, like, the book talks about my travels in Nepal. It's like that was, even though that happened at the end of the book, that's the part of the book I wrote first because I had just it was fresh in my mind. I wrote the whole book out of order, and that's okay to do too. You don't have to write page 1, chapter 1 to the end, and that's what can be daunting about. Like, if someone goes to write a book or share their story, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you think a book this thick? I've got to start here and go all the way." What comes natural, right? What comes natural, because everything just, everything will come and flow and you could piece it together later. That's what I did. I mean, the first part of my book, the depression, I wrote about all that last because I wanted to avoid writing about that. That was the toughest part to write about. I had done everything in my life to avoid feeling those things. But in order to tell this tale, I've got to feel it so I can write it. So the writing process is, depending upon the day, fun or horrible. It's
got you.
You know what I mean? But it's very rewarding in the end when you hold that book in your hands.
Oh my goodness. That's the scary part.
Yeah.
So I remember I was like starting to write my book and I'm just like, who the heck is going to read this? Like, which is a question you ask yourself. It's just like, what's so interesting about that? But I think right now what I'm just going to do is just regurgitate and then go back over and then we'll figure it out.
Baby steps, that's all it takes. One little bit at a time. And before you know it, it's a book. So yeah, I highly encourage when people ask me like, oh, it must be so hard. Or if you feel so strong and passionate about your journey or something you've been through and you feel like just even one person can benefit from hearing your story because of what happened to you and how you were able to overcome that, then do it. Because if you can help save one person or inspire one person or just at all, one life is everything, really.
Right. Absolutely. So where are you at now? So you're still volunteering because you said you just got back. When did you get back from Nepal?
In February of 2020. So it's been right before the pandemic took this ugly twist. Back when I got back, it was just still very rampant in China. Not so much. I think we maybe had one case in the U.S., the first case. So, I haven't traveled internationally at all since then, but I'm on the board of a local nonprofit organization here in Virginia Beach called Aid Now. And what we do is we focus on the homeless and transitional students of the Virginia Beach City Public School System. And so there are 900 students that are deemed homeless or at risk of homelessness. And we put this huge back to school event on for them every year. So we've been doing that. We did that last fall, and we're gearing up to do it again, where they get clothing and shoes and school supplies and food and haircuts and everything they need for their first day of school. And then we also do several smaller projects, but the other big project is called Families for Families, where we helped feed over 20,000 meals to families who were impacted by COVID-19, mostly single parent families. So I've been keeping busy with doing a lot of local volunteer work, which is great. I know a lot of people ask me like, oh, you travel to volunteer, that's so cool. But you don't have to travel to volunteer. There's so many organizations local to everyone, wherever they are, that can cater to everyone's passions. I mean, if you have a passion for something, whether it be animals or art or something, there is a nonprofit organization that is going to be there, and you can offer your help, and that's a wonderful thing. So I'm really busy with that, and I can't wait to travel again, though. It's going to be fun. I basically want to go where you can't predict natural disasters when they're going to happen. So when it does happen, if I feel called to go, that's when I'll go. Wherever in the world that may be.
Absolutely, man. Like the story that you told about when you went to Puerto Rico, I think that one, I mean, I didn't get to the other part of the book yet, but that actually, I felt like, wow, that would be great. And I thought about like all the reasons why it would scare the crap out of me going to a place that I've never been, one who's going to like, you know what I mean? And I think I have that, like, it's just like, you like to stay in your little, box.
Comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. I was actually, I think I was talking to Maria Daniels. I was saying to her, I was just like, sometimes you don't even realize that your comfort zone has a comfort zone. Like, because right now I'm in my comfort zone. Like, this is like, oh, we're online, this is fantastic. But I know eventually, like, I want to do what you want to do, like public speaking, and have that room full of people. I mean, I did kind of do a test run with Toastmasters, and I just never went back again. It's like, yay, all done.
Yeah.
Have you ever done Toastmasters?
No.
Are you familiar with Toastmasters?
No.
Well,
I have no idea what that is.
So Google Toastmasters. They're probably doing things just online right now, but their vision is to help you do exactly what you want to do, where it's like practicing public speaking, very supportive group. Like, I mean, very supportive. And you pick different topics. And I remember the first day I went, it was actually at Woolman High School, which is a school I graduated from. And they met there, and they were like, speak whatever you're passionate about. Speak about that for at least 5 minutes. And they just kind of just throw you in there in a group of people. I'm just like, oh God. I just remember sitting there and I'm just like, okay, I want to talk about like learning about yourself and like living your dream and everything. And I remember everybody else going up, and I'm like, Stacey, you need to take mental notes about what everybody else is doing. See how they work in the room. You need to do that too. So I'm trying to go up there to be perfect.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. But I got my point across. But I would encourage you to do it because you're in a group of people that have the same fear, and you pick different topics to talk about. So the good thing about it is I'm pretty sure you could talk about mental health all day long.
Mhm.
And that's,
Yeah.
in a sense, a comfort zone now, because it's like, oh, I know it. I lived it. Everything is fresh in your mind. But they also give you, I don't know if there's like a book or something, but you also would need to talk about other things. And you do different types of speeches. You're like, ah! Yeah, so it's like,
Yeah, that was the face and sound I just made. Oh, gosh.
but that's the beauty of it, because
Yeah.
it's like, okay, now you have to do a conversation that's persuasive. You have to do one that's like, there's different tones.
Yeah, I need to do that. I also would need to work on like my engage the audience and bring a sense of personality, because I feel like I don't have. Well, you know what's funny is you said you laughed when you read my book. I try to insert some of my what I quote unquote call a sense of humor into it, and I'm like, I asked people, I was like, "Did you laugh at all?" Because I tried to make you laugh, and then they're like, "Yeah, you are so funny," and I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, like when you said you have the upper body strength of a kitten.
Oh, that's very true. Yeah. Yeah.
I just imagine you with cat arms going like this.
This power washer was owning me. I was all over the place. It was just a disaster, but it was funny because, it's like, what am I doing? I'm on a roof working a power washer, like, and it's spraying everywhere. I have no control over it. I was like, a mental note, start lifting weights, because my gosh, like, this is insane.
Right.
But it was, it's like I try to insert a little bit of what little sense of humor. I don't have wit, like a quick wit. And so that was kind of my way of showing like, hey, like there is something here. I have something. Like I'm not always funny. I'm not a jokester or a very crazy, like on the spur of the moment storyteller.
Right.
But it was important for me to show like I do have some sort of personality. And I discovered it through my writing, because I didn't really realize I had one before I started writing the book. That was another cool thing I learned about myself too.
Yeah, I think you definitely showed that, like, or even when you were out having drinks with your friend and she's just like, yo, hurry up, like finish up. And you just like, having that like appreciation of that moment, because I think we all have that friend where it's like, they're looking at your glass like, all right, let's hurry it up.
Yeah. Just stop talking. Yeah.
Exactly. Have you ever done stand-up comedy?
No.
You're like, God, no.
No, that would be tough. I would prefer to give a speech than stand-up comedy, because if nobody laughed, I would be mortified. That would be, oh wow.
It's scary. I did stand-up twice. I haven't been back yet, but I want to do it because I know what it can do for me. You know what I mean? But is it terrifying? Yes. Yeah. Any new experience, you're just like, what's going to happen? What if nobody laughs? What if this happens? You know what I mean? But I think it's one of those things like with practice. You know what I mean? I'm not the best comedian, but it's about just like, I'm pretty sure like with the speaking that you do when you handle your volunteer work, it's practice, just diving in, trying new things, baby steps. That's all it is.
Practice makes perfect. That's when I started my Instagram account and I went on live for the very first time.
Yeah.
It literally lasted 20 seconds because I stumbled my words. I started shaking and I turned it right off because all these people were popping on. And I was like, oh, nope, I can't do it.
Yeah.
But over time, I would stay on like 10 seconds longer, and I'm still not good. I don't like doing them by myself still. I still feel like an idiot when I do it. But when I'm doing it with someone else and I'm able to engage and talk, it feels so much more comfortable. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, that's where I'm going to stay comfortable. And eventually getting used to talking to the camera, because I notice still, like even today, I look off too much when I'm thinking, and I need to practice staying engaged with the camera, making eye contact, and doing all the time. It takes a lot of practice, but it's fun. It's fun practice because you get to have the coolest conversations with other people. That's the part I love about this, is the conversations have been incredible. And for me as an introvert, normally I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody I don't know. I don't want to be out there on social media for people to see. I don't want to. And, once I let that guard down, I've noticed some of the best conversations I've ever had in my life have come as a result of me sharing my stories. That's the really cool part about it.
Absolutely. You should watch my first Facebook Live. It was just me describing, just sitting here, just I'm like, oh, okay. We're live, and here I am.
I'm just gonna wait for some people to pop on.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, please ask, because I don't know what the heck I'm gonna talk about if you don't ask any questions.
Right.
You know, that's what I do all the time. I'm like, okay, well, nobody's asking questions. Bye. And then, oh, it's awful.
Oh, but oh my God, Tiffany, it was a pleasure meeting you. Is there anything that you want to add to this conversation or express?
I would just say, for someone out there who may be struggling, who may be finding it hard to see positive mindset or have a positive outlook, just try to find something, even how small it is, that's going right in your situation. Something that's bringing you joy, something that can bring you a sense of peace, even if it's for a few minutes. And for me, that's a cup of tea. When I'm drinking a cup of warm tea, I feel just at peace, and it's nice. And when you learn to change your perception and your mindset towards looking for the things that are going right, that's when your mindset starts to shift in a more positive direction. So I would say, even if it's small, those little tiny building blocks will grow and grow over time, and you'll eventually start to see things in a more positive light. So look for those little things that are good and focus on those.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Guys, I dropped the link for Tiffany's book in the chat, so make sure you check that out. It is a fantastic read. I can't wait to read the rest of it. Hopefully you'll be able to come back on. That would be awesome. I'll be like, Tiffany, I read the rest of it. This is what happened. Why did this happen?
I'm excited for you to get to the part and when I'm in the airport on the way to Nepal. I think you'll find that part really, really, really funny.
Oh my goodness.
When you get there, it was one of the funniest parts that I felt when it was in the book.
Oh my goodness. All right, awesome. Right now I'm in the chapter where I think you're like actor, director, when you had to act and you're going to play, I guess, a person with certain injuries, and you're like, wait, you're in your head, how am I going to do this? What does this mean? Why couldn't I be somebody else? Why do I have to be?
Oh yeah, the tornado victim. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Man, you know what? I love the book because it's I totally understand how you think. I get it, because I once was there. I was the person that just stayed in my room. I didn't leave. My behavior was just I was in the video game world a lot. So that was my way of interacting with people. I wouldn't interact with people face to face. It was on the video games, on a headset. And that was where my friends. I mean, I had a couple of friends in real life, but the safety nets of being in your own home with your little headset, you don't have to go anywhere. It was just fantastic. But I want to thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on your book. I hope you write more.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I've got another plan for another book in the works. So I'm
awesome.
Yes.
That's what I would love to hear. Oh my goodness. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And guys, of course, if you want to follow Tiffany, real quick, where can we find you online actually?
So on Instagram, I am author Tiffany Mosher, and on Facebook, I'm Tiffany Mosher author. Send me messages. I love interacting with the readers and with people. So let's get conversations going. I'm all about it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I am going to, I'm new at this too, so I got to play my little thing here, and then we will be out. Bye, everybody.
Bye.